main gang, I'm Ramona Mainstrom. Welcome to my podcast. Today I'm going to be discussing some of the changes that have happened with Amazon and Kindle that have been affecting not just authors, but readers as well. One of the big changes that you may have noticed is that you can no longer buy books when you're in the Kindle app. Not too long ago, you used to be able to buy a book while you were in the Kindle app. This was especially useful if you were reading a series. You would reach the end of your book, and Kindle would say, hey, the next one is available. Would you like to buy it? And if it was a good series, you would mash the buy button, right? Yes, of course I want to read the next book in the series. They also gave you the option of, hey, this is a complete series. Would you like to buy the whole series now? Heck yes. Or, no, let's just do this one at a time, if you have self-control, which I do not have. If I'm enjoying a book and the whole series is out, I'm very likely to buy the whole thing and sit there and read it. All of it. No matter how long it takes. Don't bother me. Leave me snacks. I'm reading. Or, and this was also cool, you could peruse other books in the genre that you're reading, and if you find one that you like, you could buy it while you were in the app. It saved you the hassle of having to open up Amazon and go hunting for it. This is no longer a thing. Google got upset. If you were in Kindle and buying books directly through Kindle, you were only shopping at Amazon, which was hurting their sales. This led to a whole big thing where now Kindle is no longer allowed to let you buy books through the app, which means now when you finish a book in a series, you have to leave the app, go to Amazon or whichever other retailer you would like to purchase your book from, purchase it, download it, load it into Kindle. If you do buy it at Amazon, luckily it downloads automatically to Kindle for you. Now, it doesn't seem like a big deal until you realize that interrupting the flow of a reader usually causes a break in whether or not they're going to continue. There's a whole thing about when you write your books, make sure you end your chapter on a hook, on something that will make them turn the page and keep reading all the way to the end. Because once a reader puts their book down, it's down. They're done reading. And it was the same with series. If you reach the end of a book and it's part of a series, you make sure there's a hook in there and a way for them to immediately be able to buy the next book. If they're done the book, it could be weeks or months before they buy the next one, even though the entire series is available for them. So now we have a situation where you've reached the end of the book, and now you have to leave Kindle to go buy the next one. I don't know if it's actually made a difference for Google book sales, but it has definitely hurt authors whose books are only available through Amazon, and if they're in Kindle Unlimited, they don't have a choice but to be exclusive to Amazon. So that's one of the changes that Amazon has made recently, which has affected readers and authors. But here's another one. This one is a little more recent. Amazon has changed how we categorize our books. A few months ago, we could select our main categories, and they were limited, contact KDP customer service, and give them a list of related categories that we would like our book to be listed in, to a maximum of 10. Most books don't need that many, but this was very useful because when we upload, we can say, yes, this is a paranormal romance, but when we contacted them with the related categories, we could be more specific and say, not just paranormal romance, but demon and angels. I would like it in the vampire romance. And we had to be very specific because there was a chain of categories that had to be listed. So it would be book, fiction, romance, paranormal, demon romance. But then we had to do the same thing for ebooks because books and ebooks had a completely different chain of categories. So it was time consuming, but worth it so that when somebody does a category search, like I'm in the mood for a demon romance, and they type in demon romance, your book is there. As opposed to, well, maybe it'll show up just because it's related and it's a paranormal romance. So it was helpful, and it doesn't exist anymore. Amazon put a stop to that. Now they let us pick 3 categories, and we can get a little more detailed about which niche categories we want, but we're limited to 3. On top of this, Amazon will put you in the categories that it thinks you belong in, what its algorithms tell them you should be listed in. This becomes a serious problem for romance authors. And not just people who write steamy romance like I do. Sometimes even sweet romance ends up in erotica. Erotica is this dead zone. There's an audience for it, a very hungry audience, but Amazon hides these books. You won't see them in the customers also bought section, or you might like these books also. That doesn't happen. They don't want to show erotica because they're concerned that children who are using Amazon might see them. The problem becomes authors who don't write erotica are being categorized as erotica automatically by Zon bots, and your book disappears. And then you have a big fight with customer service about taking them out of that category. And last I heard, since this new change, they don't take you out of that category because their system says that's where you belong. So I don't know how that's going to get resolved, but it leads to the next change that was made that has seriously hurt authors, and not just romance authors. Authors who have foul language, violence, gore, any author who has check-marked the box, does this book contain adult content? See, up until about 3 months ago, maybe 4 months now, that box meant very specifically, because there was a whole thing on it in the help section as to what does adult content mean. It meant anything with foul language, sexual content, descriptions of sex, violence, gore. So that can cover a wide variety of adult books. Well, a few months ago, that stopped being the definition, or at least that's not what that box meant anymore. But Amazon didn't tell anybody that they'd changed the purpose of that checkbox. They didn't send out a letter to warn authors, and they didn't make the change on the KDP site, Kindle Direct Publishing. And we found out by our sales dropping. And for some of us, such as myself, who checked every single one of my steamy romance books as adult content, our books disappeared and sales dropped. And for me, my sales dropped to 0. For 3 months, I was losing my mind trying to figure out why I suddenly didn't have sales anymore. Seeing my sales drop to 0 for months without knowing why, guys, I nearly quit writing. I thought, wow, the readers really don't like my work. If I can't even get a couple of page reads before people decide the book sucks. I don't usually have that thing that some authors do where I think, oh no, my work isn't good enough. I love my books, I love my stories, and I usually get positive feedback on them, even if people don't like certain things about my stories. I get compliments on characters and world building or whatever, but to have my sales drop to 0 for months devastated me in ways I can't even explain. But I looked my kids in the face and I said, Mommy's gonna have to stop writing if things don't change really fast. I cannot afford to continue putting books out if there is no income to pay for the editing or the book covers. Both my kids burst into tears and said, Mom, you can't stop writing. It makes you happy. It's what you do. And about 2 days later, through a Facebook group for authors, that I learned having that box checkmarked now meant your book was considered erotica and was no longer being shown to readers. No notifications were going out that they were being published. No sales notifications were going out. Not being recommended as something a reader might want to see. Nothing. All my Kindle Unlimited page reads dropped to 0. So apparently, even people in Kindle Unlimited who are looking for these types of books weren't getting access to them or being told about them. So once we realized this box was the problem, the question became, how do I tell Kindle that my book isn't erotica while still letting them know that, of course, there's adult content in there? and nobody could get a straight answer. It depended on who you contacted on the other end as to what kind of answer you'd get. A lot of times it was like, well, just read the guidelines. Read the help section that explains what adult content is. Well, that's not helpful because my book has disappeared. I am somehow being punished for putting naughty language or horror authors for having violence and gore in their books. It was very stressful and chaotic, and we didn't know what to do about it. Even when head office was contacted, they didn't have an explanation to guide us. They did not have a cohesive idea. Nothing they could tell us. So authors eventually came to the conclusion that we need to uncheck that box and risk being spanked by Amazon. But so that we weren't dishonest or deceptive, there's a section where you can choose what the minimum reading age is. So that became our workaround until Amazon got its crap together and communicated with us clearly about what was going on with the adult content box. Uncheck the adult content box. Make sure you set your minimum reading age to 18. Okay, so once I knew about this workaround, I went through all my steamy romance books and I made the change. And by the end of the day, I started seeing sales again. I can't even tell you how relieved I was. And a little more than a week ago, Amazon finally made a change to let us know exactly what the new purpose of the adult content box was. This change happened without anybody knowing. Sometimes KDP will send us an email that says, hey, as of this date, people won't be able to buy your books anymore through Kindle. As of this date, we're going to change how categories work. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not clear. Sometimes we get an email, some of us get an email, some of us don't. With this content box, nobody was warned it was happening, and nobody was told that Amazon had finally figured out what was going on. So here's what it says now. There's a section that says primary audience, and what used to be the adult content checkbox now says sexually explicit images or title. Ah, a lot clearer now, isn't it? And it says, nice and clearly, does the book's cover or interior contain sexually explicit images? Or does the book's title contain sexually explicit language? Ta-ha! Now we know, do not check the box. Unless it actually has those, you're safe. Ta-da! There's still the minimum age section that you can fill out to let everyone know, hey, this is for 18 plus. Hopefully, Amazon's not going to make any more big changes. I think it's going to be a while before we can figure out how to deal with the changes that they have made. Like, how can we make it easier for our readers to access the next book in a series? Or do we just start providing the story in just one big book? If we do that, that means it'll take longer for the books to come out than if we just have multiple books in a series. One of the benefits of having a multi-book series is that we are able to get the story out to you quicker so that it's fresh and you don't forget that you were reading it or get frustrated and concerned, because a lot of readers have been burned when it comes to series being canceled. And that's a topic that I will discuss another time. But I'm curious to hear from you if you've noticed the change where you can no longer buy books in Kindle. Do you still immediately buy the next book in the series, if that was a thing that you did? Do you take the time to go to your favorite distributor and buy the next book? Do you go look at the books that are suggested or see what else the author has? How has it affected your shopping behaviors when it comes to Kindle and books? I'm also curious, did you notice that some of your favorite romance authors had gone quiet? Maybe you weren't getting notifications of their new releases. How did it affect you? Did you have to go hunting for your author's new books? I'd love to hear from you to find out how these changes affected you as a reader. Or if you're another author, did it affect you? Have you recovered? There are authors out there, maybe even your favorite authors, who don't know. So please, if you can, get in touch with your favorite authors through responding to their newsletter or something, and let them know they need to make sure that they don't have that box checked anymore unless they actually do have sexually explicit images or language on their covers, because the loss of sales is devastating. Most of us are not rich. Most of us barely break even, and watching your sales drop without knowing why or that you can fix it is heartbreaking and terrifying. I'm also going to ask you to please make sure you follow your favorite authors somewhere other than Amazon. Follow their Facebook page, LinkedIn, Goodreads, BookBub, Books to Read. Follow them on a platform that does not rely on Amazon's algorithms to let you know when a new book has been released. Please, if you love your authors, follow them somewhere else. That's my time for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoy my books and podcast, please subscribe and share and follow me on a platform that is not reliant on Amazon. You can find me on Facebook, Goodreads, BookBub, and Books to Read. And any one of those will let you know when I've released a new book. Thanks again for your support. I'm Ramona Mainstrom. Have an awesome day.